So just try to relax as much as possible. And bring your attention to the breath. And watch it mindfully. Then we can think what is most beneficial and helpful to us all the time is our state of mind. To be able to keep positive attitude, being patient, and keeping our loving kindness, compassion alive. And using our mind to develop wisdom. So those inner mental attitude or qualities are the one that can help us all the time. If there is something that can help and benefit us day and night, every time, all the time, regardless of whatever external situations, it is those qualities that can help us. Therefore, we have to try as much as possible to cultivate those qualities to maintain those qualities, to increase and improve those qualities. Through continuous reflection, contemplation, meditation practices. And for that, we need to be reminded of the importance of those practices. Through studies. And that is why we have gathered here. So we can be reminded. Having been reminded, we try to apply, implement as much as possible. So that it can make better positive situations, environment for ourselves and to others. And may our coming together here become cause and conditions to accomplish our highest potential, the fully awakened state. So we can be greatest help and benefit to all sentient beings as well as oneself. And may we be able to cultivate sense of loving kindness, compassion all the time. And be beneficial and helpful to others as much as we can. And may we never hurt and harm others through our harmful and hurtful thoughts, attitude, speech, and act. Okay, then we can do the short prayer. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the fourth destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sukhada, Lord of the world, supreme guides of human beings, be tame, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offering, and go for refuge. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dhamma refuge, homage to the Great Sangha, to all three, ever devote homage to all worthy of respect, bowing the body as many as all rams Adam in all expect. With a supreme faith, I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous action, perform only virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberrations, a flame of land, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see condition things as such. Through this merit, may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the four folds, and be delivered from the samsaric ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Can we go to the next? This crown, anointed perfumed stone flower adorned Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this a Buddha feel and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure light. Idam Guru Rana Mendalaka Niyataya. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye Chodan Soge Sonam Chanjo Pado Dani Kapsu Agi Geshe Gibe Sonam Dola Pende Sangye Tuva Sangye Chodan Soge Sonam Chanjo Pado Dani Agi Geshe Gibe Sonam Dola Pende Sangye Tuva Kanje Rujani Sune Tawadam Jabam Bese Tambe Chuni Pende Kodam So today's topic, as you all know, is looking at the present situations in the world from the Buddhist point of view or from the Buddhist lines. So again, even though we can look, when you are faced with any individual crisis, difficulties, problems, or problem in our family or in our state, our countries, in the world, wherever, whether it's individual or worldwide, such as the present situation, the crisis, through by looking, by depending on how we look at the situations, from what kind of mindset that we look, from what perspective we look at the situation, that can affect how we feel about the situations, and through that it can affect whether our mind is more calm or our mind is more disturbed. It can affect whether our mind become more to be able to keep hope or to be able to be totally kind of break down, to be able to keep our mind compassion and kind, or whether our mind become very frustrated and angry. So what kind of emotions might arise due to the situations. It can be affected very much by the with what kind of mindset or with what kind of attitude that we look at the situations, or to which part of the situation we focus on, And so, when we are faced with such a difficult crisis, whether on individual level or on collective level, on the broader, in some situations, we might be able to act, we might be able to fix the problems, or even we are unable to fix the problem fully, maybe we might be able to fix some part of it. We might be able to reduce the problem. We might be able to reduce the crisis. Or in some cases, no matter what we do, it's out of our hand. Sometimes there's not much we can do as individuals. Very limited what we can do. So sometimes we can find a solution, sometimes we might not be able to find a solutions. Sometimes we might be able to take certain actions, sometimes we might be unable to take much actions, almost like helpless, but whatever, the most important, and of course the most important, and which we can do, is work with our mind. Whether we are able to fix the problem or not, that is one thing. Whether we can act or not act, that is one thing. By acting, whether it is going to change or not change is another thing. But one thing that we can always act and do is to work with our mind. And by working with our mind, so that we can keep our mind as much as calm as possible, even in difficult times, so that our mind is not overwhelmed by too much fear, anxiety, worry, frustrations, anger, and many other negative emotions. We can always work with our mind to keep our mind more calm, to keep our mind more positive, to be able to keep our mind being hopeful instead of hopeless. From keeping our mind, to keep our mind, even in difficult time, to be kind, to be compassionate, instead of letting it to frustrations, anger. We can always work on that, and that is the key. That is the key to. That is what the Dharma is about. That is the purpose of Dharma, the spiritual practice. there are other experts in terms of dealing with the external situations. But the focus of the Dharma is to work with our mind. With our emotions. And and of course, in dealing with our emotions, our mind, our attitude, probably there are many different ways, method, practice, maybe there could be some secular practices, there could be many other, from the other many spiritual path. But here, of course, today we are going to be discussing more from Buddhist practice, from Buddhist point of view. And in relation to that, last week, we discussed how to see and look and engage in the practice in relation to such crisis from the karmic point of view. We from the karmic point of view, how we can keep our mind again, as I already mentioned, more calm, more positive, more kind, more compassion, not giving ourselves to those negative emotions. And today I'm going to kind of talk a little bit from some other Buddhists, looking to the same or similar situation, crisis, tragedy from different Buddhist subjects point of view, or from different way of looking apart from the karma, and some of those different way of looking at the same situation from different perspective. For some people, one particular way of seeing from that particular perceptions or point of view might be more effective, more helpful than from other point of view, and for some it might be helpful from all point of view. For some, one point of view, maybe it might not affect them so much, but from another point of view, maybe it might be more helpful, beneficial, So what I thought, especially today, is that I'm going to kind of talk on and discuss on this particular issue from the point of view of the understanding of the nature of samsara, from the point of view of understanding from the nature of impermanent, and if we have time, from the point of view of dependent arisings, so depending on time, we will see how and before we kind of look at the situations from the point of view of the nature of samsara, first, of course, we will have to kind of understand what samsara means. And again, I'm going to put more kind of in general way, the samsara means, our state of beings, our life, our rebirth, being under the control of karma and delusions, contaminated karma and delusions. That is what it means to be samsara, the nature of samsara. When something, whether it's your state of being, your life, your rebirth, that is under the control of something else, and another factors, another conditions, and that in this case, the others factor, the conditions, is the delusions and the contaminated karma. When that is under that influence, that control, then that is what we can say samsara, And when someone is able to free from that control, when someone is able to free themselves from under the control of such contaminated karma and action, delusions, then they are free from the samsara. Then they are no more they are combined by the samsara or within the samsara, then they are free from the samsara. But as long as we are in the control of that, then we are in samsara. So therefore, when you are in the samsara, under the control of the contaminated karma and the delusions, then of course, there is always going to be problems. There is always going to be, challenges, difficulties. There's always going to be suffering and pain, When something or someone is under the control of delusion and contaminated karma, it can't be perfect. It's going to be imperfections. There's not going to be satisfactions, true satisfaction, but instead is going to have dissatisfactions. It's not going to be, full of joy and happiness all the time. There's going to be a lot of suffering, pain. And that is the reality of being in samsara. That is the reality of being under the control of delusion and contaminated karma. That is the nature of what samsara is. And when we understand, the nature of samsara more deeply and more profound way, then when we face, encounter challenges, difficulty, crisis, we will not be so shocked. We will not be so surprised, because we understand it's the nature of that, and you somehow expected that could happen, and mentally, emotionally, you have been prepared to a certain level. And when we have been able to prepare emotionally and mentally what might be coming, then it becomes less painful, less suffering. And we are able to deal with it better. We are emotionally and mentally able to deal with it, manage it better, more positively, more healthy way. You know, and otherwise, otherwise we have a lot of fantasy, daydreaming, and thinking samsara is perfect and great. And then when something goes wrong, then we wonder what is happening. How can that happen? We are unable to, mentally unable to accept and deal with that. And it makes much more painful, much more difficult to manage and handle the situations. And again, even though, we always kind of talk about samsara here and there, we discuss, talk about samsara, nature of samsara. The painful samsara, the painful suffering nature of samsara, even though we kind of discuss, we talk about it, maybe sometimes even we try to reflect, contemplate a little bit on that. But, a lot of time we don't take it very seriously. When we discuss, when we talk, when we listen, we take it more as like we are listening a story, a stories, hearing a story about what is happening in another planet. We kind of look it as more distant, more as like you are looking at something, you are listening to a story, you are looking at something out there. And we don't really feel it as personal, and really due to not having the deep understanding and profound understanding of nature of samsara, is so, because our understanding is so superficial, so surface. so artificial in a way, And when something like this struck us, not only this one, but of course on individual level, on family level, on, within our friends, within our neighbors, our state, then it become more personal. Then we started to feel it more. And then we begin to see how samsara sucks. Otherwise, normally when things are going well, we think, oh, samsara is not bad. Samsara is good. We don't feel like important and necessary to get out of samsara, We don't see the urgency or the importance to get out free from the samsara. We feel, oh, samsara is not too bad. Not only not too bad, sometimes we think it's great. And suddenly something strikes, like present crisis or many other things in our life. Boom, then it's like your head being banged by another hammer, And then in that situation, then a lot of time we freak out, and we don't know how to deal with it. And that is because, our understanding is still very superficial. If our understanding is deep and profound level, we will have a different different attitude all the time, whether we are being faced with such challenges, crisis or not, So at the moment, there is a difference between our superficial intellectual understanding and our experiential understanding, deeper level of experiential understanding, and there is a gap. And due to that gap, we don't have the same response from our natural state of mind, the way on intellectual level we can understand a little bit, yeah. And in our everyday life, there is always, it's like, the samsara is reminding us time to time, sending a notice and warning, all the time, how samsara is, not a pure land, how samsara is not a, in the nature of joy and happiness all the time, but instead, is full of pain, suffering, challenges, and difficulties. Even though every day it sent us reminder, it sent us notice, it sent us warning, but a lot of time we're unaware of that. Every day it says those, warning, those notice, those reminder, be with our physical health, be with our emotional health, be with our surroundings. And a lot of time we are unaware, which somehow we can't see that. And sometimes we see that, we are aware of that, but we think, oh, it's not such a big deal. It's not as bad. And therefore we kind of ignore it, doesn't take it seriously, doesn't pay much attention. And therefore we're unprepared when things comes in a big way. Then you get a big, after all these small warnings, notice, reminder, then still, we don't kind of take it seriously, we don't pay attention, and then one day, boom, big crisis, big tragedy, big difficult situations arises, and we are caught up totally unprepared. On the other hand, when we get all these small warning, notice, and reminder, we are aware of that, we pay attention, then, we started to work with our mind to overcome those contaminated karma and those delusions. Until we work with that, and to be able to reduce and to be able to overcome that, we'll continue to have similar difficult situation or even much more worse that might be waiting. And so therefore, due to not being aware, or even when we are aware, the things is not too serious, it's not too bad, and not paying attention, then we get distracted. We get all distracted all the time. And with that distractions, we are unable to work with our mind, and we are unable to train our mind. We are unable to prepare our mind. And when something like big things happen, then definitely we struggle to deal with that emotionally, mentally. We struggle to deal with that. So then we have to fight two things: the physical discomfort and physical challenges, as well as the mental challenge and mental difficulty. And it becomes very difficult when we have to deal with both. It is like now, in the present situation, you are dealing with health as well as economic. So it's so difficult. If you don't have economic challenges and you have health issue, through that economic, you might be able to help deal with the health. But when you are dealing with both health and emotions, then it's becomes so difficult, more challenging. Same thing with us. We face a lot of physical challenges, physical discomfort, and external challenges. But if our mind is in good state, if we have a strong mind and positive and good state, calm mind, we will be able to deal with it much better, whatever challenge it is. But when our mind, due to that, when we don't have that state of mind, and not only there is those physical challenges, then our mind, started to become very negative, so much, fear, anxiety, worry, panicking, even in some cases, so much frustrations, angers, so many different negative emotions, when that arises, then now we have to deal with two things. And the problem has multiplied, much more bigger. And the emotional problem is much more difficult to deal than the external problems. And why we end up that? Because we didn't train our mind. We didn't kind of prepare our mind. Why didn't we do that? When things are not so bad, we got distracted to other things, and we couldn't kind of find time, energy, resource to work with our mind and to train our mind. So therefore, when we have that kind of such crisis, difficulty, challenges, as much as painful they are, is a reminder, is to wake up us, is a wake-up call. If we know how to look it positively with the right state of mind, then it is in a way it is a good, because when you are sleeping and now it is a wake-up call and saying, hey, you can't just sleep all the time. You have to wake up. You have been sleeping all the time. Now it's time to wake up and see the things. And a wake-up call for us to practice the Dharma. And practice the Dharma, meaning working with our mind. Working with our mind. To reduce and to overcome those unhealthy negative emotions, and to improve and increase those healthy, positive attitudes and emotions in the mind, And if we try to look it positively, then we can learn from these difficult, painful situations. If we don't know how to look properly, then we don't learn anything from that. And again, we go to the same routine. When things start to improve a little bit, then again we go to the same routine, same way of doing, same way of thinking. Again, not working with our mind. And then again, something is samsara, something's going to happen. And then again, something happened, again, same thing. And we keep repeating that. Never ending, painful experience. On the other hand, if it can wake up us, if it can, from this situation, it kind of wake up us, and then we utilize from this wake-up call to pay more attention to our practice, to work with our mind, then we have learned a lot from these painful situations. Then it serves certain purpose, positive purpose. And then because of working with our mind, as we make progress through our training of the mind, then even in the futures, when things goes wrong, even worse than these things could happen, you know. This might be just a, you know, as we say, iceberg, you know, what might be coming, even though we don't like to think that way, but who knows what is waiting there. So many unknown. And even things goes very bad, at least you have a stable mind. At least you have a more stable mind, more calm, peaceful mind to deal with that. At least you have a state of mind which is not easily, you know, disturbed and manifesting all these other negative emotions, fear, worry, anxiety, frustration, anger, all of those feelings, you know. And if we do that, then definitely, while we might be experiencing some physical challenges, external challenges, physical discomfort, at least mental level, you don't have to experience those pain, those challenges, those difficulties. And with that mind, state of mind, we will be much more better positions to manage and deal with all the external challenges. It will not overwhelm you. It will not devastate you. You know, we can kind of move forward. We will be able to move forward and go about in our life without being knocked down. You know. On the other hand, when we are not prepared mentally, when certain situations comes, it can totally knock down us, you know. Where some people cannot come out of that situations. In a worse situation where people think of taking their life. Not only think of taking their life, in some cases they take even their life, you know, because they couldn't handle, because one couldn't handle and deal with the painful and difficult, challenging situations, and because we have not trained our mind, we have not worked with our mind to deal with that, you know. So therefore, but if we use this as a wake-up call and to help us to kind of focus more on our practice, to working with our mind, then definitely, as bad it is, also it serves certain good purpose, you know. So if we understand and realize, you know, the nature of samsara, you know, as I said, on more deeper level and profound level, you know, when those difficulties, challenges, crisis, tragedies happens to ourselves, around us, you know, emotionally, mentally, you know, will be able to understand better, to be able to understand better, to be able to accept it more easily. And to be able to, embrace the suffering, the pain, the difficulties. And then it becomes less painful, less suffering. On the other hand, when we don't understand that, then we think something's happening that shouldn't be happening. And when we have this sense, that something's happening, this painful something's happening that shouldn't be happening, then, it can lead to a lot of more frustrations and more anger and many other negative emotions. And then we started to feel like, life is not fair, unfair. Then we started to feel like, life is unfair, and this sense of being fair and unfair can, when we think that is unfair, then definitely, it can lead us to a lot of frustration, anger, and many negative feelings and thoughts. It is not being about fair and unfair. The nature of samsara is like that. That's what it is. The nature of samsara is, unpredictable. The nature of samsara is full of, up and down. The nature of samsara is, full of surprise with this problem, suffering, pain, difficulties. It is how it is, what it is. The nature of samsara is not created by God, the Buddha, or anyone else. That is what it is. And if we feel samsara is unfair, life is unfair, samsara is miserable, unbearable, then we should try to end the samsara. And we can end the samsara instead of feeling being unfair and miserable in that. Instead of that, try to walk to end the samsara by walking with the by working to overcome the cause, conditions that produce the samsara and samsaric experience. And that means working to overcome the contaminated karma and the delusions. For example, the nature of the fire is burning. And if you are not mindful, if we don't pay attention, not mindful, and by accidentally you put your hand on fire and it burns, we don't talk about that fire being fair or unfair. The nature of fire is burning, And when you are too close, and when you don't pay attention, and you put your cloth, your hand, something on that, and it burns. If you don't want to be burned, you have to be more mindful, careful, not to be too close, and taking all the precautions. So we don't have this concept of when the fire burns due to not paying attention or by accident, whatever. We don't have this concept and think as being fair, unfair, because we understand the nature of fire is burning. That is what it is. And so therefore, we don't have strong resentment, grudges. We don't hold resentment and grudges towards the fire, even though it burn our hand, feet, whatever. And same thing, the nature of the water, the rain, it will wet, And so if we go unprepared when it's when it's raining, when it's hailing, when it's storm, you are going to get wet. That is what it is. That is the nature of that storm. That is the nature of that rain. So we don't again think of the rain being or storm being unfair or fair, even though it wet us. Through wet, not only it wet us, maybe in some cases, maybe sickness. While it's uncomfortable, what is painful, while is all that, but we don't have that concept of the storm, the weather, the rain being fair or unfair, because the nature of that is to wait with whatever objects it comes in relation to that get wet, and that is how what it is in nature of that is waiting, So therefore again we don't have such a resentment and grudges. We don't hold resentment and grudges, whether it's the weather, the rain, the storm, So because we understand that is what it is, so we just prepare. We just by knowing the nature of the fire is burning, by knowing the nature of the storm, the rain is a wet. So we prepare more when we need to go around such things. We go with more preparedness. Same way, that is what we should understand also in the nature of samsara. The nature of samsara is, dissatisfaction, problem, suffering, pain, full of problems, suffering, and pain. And therefore, that is what it is. And therefore, we just have to prepare ourselves, emotional, mental, to deal with that. And how we can kind of stop that. And so yeah. So if we are able to understand the nature of samsara in that way, on a more deeper level, then it's more easier for mentally, emotionally to kind of accept it and to reduce the suffering and pain that come through our mind, So I think we will have a short break, okay, 10-minute break. And also those who have any questions, you can always send it through the chat. And or if you want to ask, directly, also most welcome later, okay? So we'll have a 10 minutes break, okay? Okay. Again, everyone, welcome back. I think there are a few questions. I think I will okay. Question, please put questions today. I'm new to this practice, but I believe I'm beginning to understand the conscious method of letting go of the attachment and subsequent delusions of negative emotions, and have experienced some success in doing so. I notice absence now of anxiety, fear, pain, and suffering, but it feels like a void. The absence of negative emotion feels strange to me. What is the method now of being able to fully experience positive emotions? So I think it's wonderful. First of all, and I will say, congratulate and great that now you are feeling less anxiety, less fear, less worry. So that is wonderful, and continue to practice, continue to work with that. As for the others, feeling the void, of course it might look strange because we are not so used to not having those negative emotions, so when you have less of those negative emotions, and when it's like when you live in a busy place, very crowded busy place where you hear a lot of noise, and if you don't hear any noise and no busyness, you feel very strange, if everyone's quiet and no noise, you will feel very strange and even almost like a void, and I also remember when I was in monastery, like, because some monks go bed little early and some of them stay very late, to memorize, to recite what they memorize, so when I go to my bed, some of the monks will be kind of, again, reciting or memorizing close by around your windows or others, and sometimes when it's quiet, it looks very strange because you are so used to hearing them, the noise or the the recitations of the text or whatever, and so it looks very strange and also feel void, something missing, and that is what is, because we are constantly in our mind, we are constantly busy with all those negative emotions, sometimes it's much more gross, intense, and sometimes it's more subtle, but very much. And so then it definitely one feels strange and something missing in a void, one thing is that, what we can do while we try to have less fear, and that in our cases, then by understanding the suffering and pain of others who might be going through ourselves or even much worse, then we try to cultivate love and compassion. So you can feel voidness, that voidness by cultivating love and compassion, um, by understanding and feeling the pain and suffering of others, um, who might be experiencing similar our experience, or maybe some of them much more worse than ourselves. And through that, maybe you can try to focus on the meditation of loving kindness and compassion in order to feel that voidness. Okay, then I will see other questions. comments, if you understand nature of samsara, then when the huge obstacle pains come, you will also be able to keep space in your mind to clear thinking to arise, to help us problem solve when possible, and also to help others, instead of compounding the obstacle with our emotional anguish, as you had mentioned in the previous teaching. Questions. Please explain difference between contaminated and uncontaminated karma. Please describe mental level of samsaric being as how, even in human form, someone may be experiencing suffering of hell realms, predas. Well, until we have direct realization on emptiness, then we will continue to create contaminated karma. Because our intentions and motivations on more causal level, on a deeper level, will be by motivated by ignorance. Even though the resultant motivation might be virtuous, but the causal before that, on more subtle level, on the fundamental, it is still be, and so that the karma that we created, ordinary beings that create karma due to that ignorance, motivated by that will be contaminated. Once you have direct realization in emptiness, once you achieve Arya state, then you still continue to create karma, but it is no more contaminated karma, and it doesn't become cause to project samsaric rebirth. So you still have karma, still someone, even when someone has created, even someone who have reached Arya state by having direct realization, still they continue to create karma, but it's not contaminated karma. And of course, within the different texts, there are many different ways whether it's contaminated, or there are 6 different ways of whether it's contaminated or not. But one of the main is whether it is contaminated by the delusion or not, and especially that fundamental ignorance. And so maybe that would be a short kind of general differentiate between contaminated and uncontaminated karma. And then in terms of mental level, samsaric beings, even in human, yeah, if someone is, for example, when someone is constantly, all the time craving, all the time, then that is, hungry ghosts or preda realms within the human life on the mental level. That is what it is, no matter how much you have externally, but if your mind is always feeling not enough and always wanting more, always craving more and more all the time, that is, hungry ghost mentality, and that is the suffering of hungry ghosts on mental level, and definitely, if we are constantly disturbed by our strong anger, hatred, then definitely that is, the mental suffering of hell beings, in terms of direct consequences and pain among all the negative emotions, anger and hatred is the most painful. Attachment, of course, it is a cause of a lot of our pain and suffering, but in terms of direct pain, you know, it is more kind of indirect, as well as the ignorance as well. But in terms of the direct pain and suffering, you know, most painful suffering that can, on emotional, that can lead us, you know, is strong anger and hatred, those negative feelings, you know, and that is hellish being, you know. So just to, without going too much on that, I see that Guru Devotion Center practice in Buddhism, the practice train us to see our Guru in a certain way. In one of the purpose of Guru devotion, also see all sentient beings same pure way. Yes, I think the idea is, you know, especially, of course, the practice of Guru devotions become more important in Mahayana Buddhism, and especially in Vajrayana Buddhism. And in Vajrayana Buddhism, the training is to be able to see, to train our mind to see all sentient beings as a Buddha. You know, it is a training to see everything pure, in the sense that transforming the impure environment into a pure realms, you know, and so training to see the whole environment as a pure, training to see all sentient beings within that environment as a deity, as a Buddha, you know, all sentient beings as Buddha. And definitely there's no doubt about training to see also the Guru as a pure. We start with the root Guru, which is more easy to see that, and then expand to other Gurus, you know, and slowly expand to all other sentient beings, and then to see all sentient beings, everyone as a pure, you know. And if we have that attitude, or to be able to see that, then a lot of negative mind that arises due to seeing impure in sentient beings, in non-sentient beings, you know, and we become very judgmental, you know. We see something as impure on the basis of that appearance of impure, then we judge them. On the basis of the judging them, then we have different negative emotions. And so therefore, it is one different method, you know. In Vajrayana, this is another different method of to kind of stop those negative emotions arising on the basis of judgment, and those judgment arising due to some appearance of impurity. And so by changing that, then we can stop that emotion, that judgmental thought arising and that negative emotion arising. So that is another different method. Okay. So I think it seems that is the questions, all the question so far, you know, that again, if anyone has another question, they can again write, or they can kind of, or questions or comment, they can switch on their mic and they can ask, or so we talk from the samsaric point of view, you know. So when we have deeper understanding of some nature of samsara, you know, then when those things happen, you think, what am I supposed to expect? This is what it is. This is what samsara means, you know. And so therefore, you know, it doesn't become as painful, you know. You say, oh, this is what it is, you know. This is what you expect. What can you expect more than that? That is samsara, you know. That's the result of delusion karma, you know, contaminated karma. And what can we expect from the result of, what kind of result can we expect other than this from the delusion and you know, the contaminated karma, you know? So by being able to see it that way, you know, it doesn't hit you so strongly in your heart as it hit us now, you know, because we're not expecting that. We're not expecting to have that kind of problem. We're not expecting that kind of problem, difficulties, challenges, crisis, and feel like, you know, as I mentioned before, you know, almost like being unfair by those situations. And because again, we totally unexpected, unprepared. And so when we understand the nature, then, you know, that is, His Holiness Dalai Lama was saying, you know, of course, it is not in accordance with samsara, but similar, just to give you an example, you know, of course, he says, of course, there are always difference, you know, opinion, again, everywhere. And he says sometimes people, you know, blame him for many things, you know, unreasonable blame, you know. Sometimes there is some reason, and sometimes, you know, like for example, you know, his political, even with his political path that he chose, what he called middle way, you know, where he, instead of fighting, instead of asking for independence, where a lot of the younger generation Tibetans, the youth, they want, but he has always, for his, until he was leader, you know, political leader, he always went for what he called autonomous regions, where he doesn't ask for full independence, but autonomous region, and that even within the Chinese constitutions, in order to preserve the language, the culture, and that, you know. And even with that, you know, there are a lot of people who have been blaming and attacking him for taking that approach instead of taking the approach of full independence, you know. And so, of course, also in other things, you know, even in other things, there are a lot of, not a lot, but some people, you know, who, and there are so definitely within the Tibetan community, and definitely from a lot of others, and definitely they are always kind of blaming and attack from the Chinese government for many things. And so he says, when he says, you know, the way he deal with that is that he say, oh, it's just a human beings, you know. That's how human beings, ordinary human beings react. That's how ordinary human beings respond, you know. So to be able to see, you know, instead of focusing on that individual or that person is so bad, and with that kind of unreasonable blaming and attack, but seeing, you know, that is how we ordinary human beings full of delusions would react. And by to be able to see, it make less personal. It make it less personal. It make it less personal attack. It make it less personal blame. It make it more as we, as ordinary human beings who have all these delusions, that's how we act. And to be able to understand and accept that, make you, you know, not to get so angry and upset, you know. And similarly, that is how we bring here, also from the samsaric point of view, you know, all the challenges, difficulties, and crises that we encounter, you know. I think that is what samsara is. And everyone experience. There's some way or another way. That is how it is. And once we are able to accept, make peace with that, then it doesn't become as problem anymore. It doesn't become as much problem and difficult as it doesn't become as the problem doesn't become as problem. The difficult doesn't become as difficult. And thereby we can have a less suffering and less pain on emotional, mental level. Again, if the samsara, if the suffering, if the samsara is so unbearable, and if we feel it is so miserable, unbearable, and so unfair, whatever we feel like, whatever we call it, it's not enough just feeling that way. It's a useless feeling that way if we don't do if we don't take any actions. Instead, however we feel about that way, that should inspire us to wanting to get rid of, wanting to free from the samsara, and wanting to stop the cause and conditions that that produce such a unfair experience, such a if we think is unfair, such a miserable experience if we think is miserable, it's such an unbearable, painful experience. If we feel that, if we don't want that, then definitely we should do something to stop such experiences in the futures. And that means working with our contaminated karma and the delusions. That means working with our mind, basically working with our mind. And the good side is that samsara can be end. That is the good side. The positive side is that samsara we don't have to experience that all the time. It's not that we don't have any choice, but to experience it. Samsara can be ended. Samsaric experience can be ended. Bring to the end. And to be able to bring end to the samsara and samsaric miserable experience, that means we have to bring end to the contaminated actions or karma and the delusions, and mainly end to the delusions, the primary. If there is no delusion, then there is no contaminated karma to be created. So then therefore bring end to the delusion, and to bring end to the delusion, then we bring end to the very root of those delusions, the fundamental ignorance. And in that way, if it inspires us to take in that direction, then it's beneficial, it's worthwhile, and we have learned from that painful experience. We have made most of those painful experiences. We have transformed something that from that painful experience to something positive. As painful it is, but also at the same time we have been able to turn it around in something positive, by being able to inspire ourselves to practice and work with our mind. So therefore, and then secondly, I wanted to kind of touch a little bit on looking from the nature of impermanent. So again, even though the impermanent nature, the teaching on impermanent nature is in front of us, all the time. But most time we are unaware of that. And even when we are a little bit aware of that, again, as I mentioned with the nature of samsara, we don't pay so much attention, or we ignore, we don't take it too seriously, And then when the change happens in a big way, then again we are unprepared and unable to deal with that, If we really look at it, every breath we are taking, every moment of the breath, each breath we take in, each breath we breathe out, it's it's changing all the time, constantly. If we pay attention to our thoughts, our emotions, it's constantly changing all the time. It's never same. Even it is same emotions, such as anger, even though anger for a long time. Again, every moment is not same. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's more intense. Sometimes it is less intense. Sometimes it is last long. Sometimes it lasts less. Sometimes it's just like it's pricking your heart, boom, and sometimes it's more subtle. Even it is same emotions for a certain period, but each moment is not exactly same, intensity and durations and all of them. So you can see our mind is always changing all the time, and on physical level is always changing. Even though maybe it is hard to see with our naked eye, change in second by second, but definitely if you look with certain technology, microscope, definitely you can see, the changes. To our naked eye, we see the change when change has become more bigger and stronger, And then if we look, the weather, is constantly changing. If you look in the sky, it's keep on changing. If you see in the plant, it's constantly changing. Everything you look around, all the time changing. But so you can see impermanent, the nature of impermanent, ever changing all the time, not being same all the time, constantly moving, constantly changing. That nature is always there around us all the time. But we are being blinded from seeing it, from being aware of it by our strong grasping of permanent, And that is a big problem, because we have strong grasping of permanent. And when things change, when things do change, especially when things change from good to bad, bad to worse, then we freak out, Then we are unable to accept it, when we are unable to deal with it in a positive way, healthy way, It feels like we have been somehow punished. It feels like, something unfair is done to us. But a lot of times it's nothing to do with that. It's that the nature of the things, it keep on changing. It's changing, Just as like when in the spring, when the flowers grow, it's beautiful. Just as we want to have that beautiful flowers and all the scent of the flowers and all of that all through the year, most of the plant is not going to be that. They will die, by fall, and all the leaves of flower will dry up, they will fall, and it's a kind of something else. But we are okay with that, because we know that is the nature of that plant. While it is still there, while the flowers are there, we enjoy it. While it is there,